in the book of Revelations, it talks about the four beasts before the throne of God, one having the head of a man, the other of an eagle, the other of a bull, the other of a lion. Those are the four fixed signs of the zodiac. There's no question about the symbolism, but you have to understand that language. That's why I'm saying that modern people, this tendency towards fundamentalism and some of the orthodoxy, is you're trying to read a book that you don't speak the language of, because so much of this was known at that time that it was written and understood in a certain way. And now you're looking at it, I'm not saying everybody does this, but I'm saying a lot of people unfortunately fall prey to looking at this book through a completely different lens and not being able to understand that rich language of symbolism and astrology as it was understood back then. Now, you look at, for example, Horus, he was often pictured with Isis, his mother, the babe Horus, sitting on a throne, which was his mother Isis. That same iconography was used with Jesus and Mary.
Right.
These are symbols that are recycled. And so you have I do believe, like I said, I've had my conversation with Jesus. I believe there was a historical figure, Jesus, but I think also that you've had a lot of mythological metaphor that's been worked into it to make it the religion that you know now.
Exactly. It's kind of weird when you were bringing up, the astrological and everything else and stuff, because I think, like they were calling the Mazzaroth at that time, you would take the Hebrew names of the stars and everything, and they would tell the whole story of Christ and everything, and how they laid that into the Zeitgeist movie and everything. It's kind of a unique and kind of thought-provoking and everything else and stuff like that. But to me, it was kind of like, it didn't really hold water at all to me, none whatsoever. So I was going to ask Don about that as well too. But the thing is also, when it comes to mythology and everything, and the accounts of mythology, when they were saying about the virgin births and everything else and stuff like that, I mean, some of those stories, they don't even hold water either. They can't even find records whether if those mythology things are true or not. What is your 2 cents on that, Don?
They threw it in there because they could. They threw it in there because they could. They probably thought it was funny at certain points. And at the same time, you have to understand that the people who are writing at these pieces of work were quite at times under the influence of something, if you understand. So, actually, it seems like we've kind of covered a lot of ground on that particular Jeebus subject. Is there anything else that we could probably do?
Let me throw one in before we leave that topic.
Okay.
The goddess Ishtar is sent into the netherworld. There's no question about it. It's known to archaeologists and to people who study ancient civilizations. That mythos of Ishtar going into the netherworld, crossing over the 7 gates, and there her sister Ereshkigal, the goddess of the netherworld, had her impaled on a stake. And 3 days later, she was resurrected. And these resurrection stories all follow a very similar pattern. You look at Ishtar, the oldest one we know of. Osiris is another one. Hesiod. Hesiod, or there was another. Odin being crucified on the world tree, very similar to Christ crucified on the cross. These are symbols. There's meaning to these. And you have to study and understand what the symbols mean to understand what the message is that's being conveyed about your path as a human being trying to ascend. That's what the real meaning of the story is. It's about you as a person born into the flesh, being subject to death, and what is your means of ascension out. And so like I said, if you ignore the symbolism, if you ignore the language that's being taught to you, you're misinterpreting everything, and you're putting it into just believe in this magical guy. And I don't want to down Christians, but I mean, if it's been twisted into just believe this story, and you're going to go to the happy place where you can eat cotton candy and play harps for all eternity, it's really a perversion of what the mystical meanings of all these things were intended to be. And you have to study these things. And
the original person who's trying to convey the message to the masses that it came from is actually disappointed.
Yes, take my word for it.
I understand what you're saying about that. There's a lot of studying to be involved when it comes to a lot of this and stuff. There's a lot of studying to be involved with, documents and manuscripts and all kinds of different. A lot of people would have to believe in, the Bible or maybe the Quran or whatever what you believe in. You can believe in Scientology or whatever, but you still got to go in the background of the historical events and the historic manuscripts and all kinds of stuff and whatever that they have, and really do your homework on that and stuff like that. Whether if it was pre. Or after, BC, AD, that sort of thing. I think that's where a lot of people get confused, and they like to throw in a lot of different things and their own controversies into the whole thing as well too, and everything. So let me drop this one to Don Henrie really quick about the Bible and the Quran or any of these written manuscripts or whatever. What is your 2 cents about that? I mean, do you think it's just these God inspired, or do you think it's just a bunch of crazy lunatics?
I would say it's God-inspired in energy, in thought, in manifestation within that person's temple. But it is, of course, what I said earlier, mentioned as just a facet, just one example of the greater being. At the same time, with the people within those certain regions, they would, of course, picture their deity or their god that they eventually kill. Within their robes that they wear within their region and their demographics, I guess you'd say. So that's why you get different types of versions. Just like Buddha would be a fat person with, excuse the way I say it, but kind of chinky eyes. I'm half Japanese, so I could say that. Ha!
I just found that out today.
Yes.
That's awesome. Actually, a friend of mine was wondering where what nationality you were, believe it or not. Yeah.
Half Japanese and half Welsh.
Hey, there you go. And everybody in the chat room still wants to know your middle name.
The definition would be wagon wheel.
There you go.
Look it up.
There you go. Okay, really fast, briefly, Bon, your 2 cents about that, about the Bible and everything else and stuff. Your 2 cents really quick.
Well, understand the symbolism. Here in Genesis, you had the tree of the knowledge of good and evil that man was forbidden to eat. You had another tree in the garden, which was the knowledge of the tree of life. The first symbol is the serpent on the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which led to man's fall into the state of matter, into the state of physicality. And following that, the angel put a flaming sword out and prevented man from returning into Eden. The second symbol is the serpent on the tree of life, which is Jesus, which has been represented throughout Christian tradition as well. And you have to understand what's really, being explained, but it's a process. You have to not only study, but you have to live, and you have to experience, and you have to learn by doing as well. It's not just enough to take somebody's, spoon-fed, word for what it all means, and it's a search, and it says in the Bible, if you want knowledge, you have to seek it. Knock, and it'll open to you. It's a tool. Yes. Now, I have a whole other, and we don't have time to get into this. As far as the whole Messianic traditions, I think there was angelic involvement, possibly, at least according to the stories. If you look at most of the revealed religions, they came through angels. Gabriel factors into a lot of these. Now, you can say either it did come through angels or somebody was lying, but you look at the Quran, for example, Gabriel. You look at the announcement of the birth of Jesus, Gabriel. You look at angelic involvement, and I have a whole, like I said, I can go on. That's a whole separate topic with my conversations with angels and my interactions with those. That I consider to be separate from a direct divine revelation, and that I have reservations about that based on my own study. I don't think it was necessarily a direct divine revelation because of certain telltale signs that it maybe didn't come directly that way.
Wow.
Like I said, that's a completely different conversation, and get into angelic politics and everything else, and it could be.
Exactly.
We can reserve that for later.
Okay, cool. We do have to take
time do we have here today?
yeah, we have a little bit more time. We have to take a quick break.
I'd like to express a few thoughts, actually.
Oh, okay, cool. Really, really quick, we have to take a short break, just like a little 5-minute break, just really, really fast. Gather our thoughts really quick and stuff like that. And we'll be back at the rest of the VMO show. We're broadcasting Southern California. We'll be right back with Don Henry and Bon Necron.